Welcome, kind and esteemed viewers. This is your bestie, Lady Feemy Chatterington. Are you ready for the latest dose of saucy scandal amidst the illustrious ton? Prepare your ears, for this bit of gossip is sure to have high society mamas clutching their pearls and provoking even more tongues to wag. Do get comfortable and join me for a spell. Pour yourself a cup and let's sip on some hot English tea together. And please, don't be shy when tempted to reach for the biscuit tray. Sometimes you need something a little sweet to wash away the naughty from your palate. Do you remember our recently jilted Lord Percival? Well, my ladies and gents, apparently Lord Percival Abbott, the Viscount of Weston, has found himself adrift in a tempest of despair. Once brimming with the anticipation of love, his heart and spirit now lay broken, the unfortunate consequence of love's shattered promises. As you know, in the bustling heart of London, where intrigue dances through the air just as swiftly as the scent of flowers when in bloom, gossip and scandal likewise travel most expeditiously. It was only weeks ago that Lord Percival was ready to bind his life to that of Miss Isabella Wickham, his distant cousin and former betrothed. Yet fate cruelly intervened, and had Isabella forsake him for the dashingly handsome Duke of Devonshire, leaving Percival to pick up the pieces of his fractured heart and navigate the wreckage of their shattered betrothal alone. To numb the ache of her absence, rumour has it that he has been seeking solace in the bottom of his cups, and in the hollow promises of fleeting pleasures, indulging in revelry, and in all flavours of debauchery as a way to forget. Amidst this haze of despair, he was seen several times wandering and inebriated through the streets of London at all hours of the night, his once noble countenance now marred by his immense shadows of despair. Poor soul! It is a most unsavoury way to nurse a bruised ego and numb one's wounded heart, don't you think? Most sad and unfortunate indeed. However, there is hope for our dear Lord Percival yet. It is reported that he has recently stumbled upon a gift of saving grace, offering him a much-needed kindness in his darkest hour. On a warm afternoon, Lord Percival Abbott found himself strolling in Hyde Park, lost in his thoughts. He wandered the same path he had once promenaded with Miss Isabella, their conversations still echoing in the wind and in his mind. "Is this my destiny?" he mused to himself, "to live a life of solitude, haunted by the ghost of a love that was never meant to be mine?" Just as he was about to succumb to his despair once more, a soft, empathetic voice broke through his meandrous thoughts. "Is all well, sir?" she asked shyly, her eyes holding a hint of curiosity and her smile radiating warmth. "Are you by chance lost?" "More than I'd care to admit," Percival replied, his voice barely above a whisper as he tipped his hat. "May I join you?" he asked, gesturing to the park bench the young lady was sitting upon. "Of course," she stated kindly. He looked around somewhat uncomfortably at the thought that a lovely miss such as herself would be left unchaperoned. Unbeknownst to him in that moment, her chaperone, albeit discreet, was most definitely nearby and within plenty of hearing distance. He proceeded anyhow and bowed deeply. "Allow me to introduce myself. I am Lord Percival," he said, before placing himself beside her. "It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Lord Percival," she said, her voice soft with a gentle smile. "I am Miss Rose Mayfeather." Lord Percival pondered for a moment, trying to recall if the surname was familiar to him. However, it was not. It wasn't long before the awkwardness of their initial meeting soon fell away after they made polite introductions, their mundane conversation leading the way toward genuine interest. During their afternoon encounter, they spoke of books, about nature, about life and its many mysteries, and before they realized it, the day seemed to pass before them as swiftly as did the breeze. As the sun moved across the sky, casting long shadows across the park, Percival soon found himself looking at the world through different eyes. The wind and the trees no longer echoed with heartbreak, but whispered the promises of something altogether new. And there it was, a much-needed spark, a resplendent glimpse of hope zinging within him. His mood suddenly heightened with a palpable sensation he hadn't felt in a very long time. Lord Percival looked at his pocket watch and rose from the bench they were sharing. "Miss Rose, I must be on my way. However," he placed his hand to his chest before he continued, "I am most grateful for our pleasant conversation this fine afternoon. It's been more than enlightening." Her cheeks lifted in a knowing smile. "Likewise, my lord." Lord Percival bid her farewell that afternoon, feeling refreshed and his mind unexpectedly clear. When he arrived home that evening, he opened his correspondence to find an invitation from his dear friend and comrade, Lord Hargrove. If it were another despair-filled day, Lord Percival may have overlooked the invitation or have declined it entirely, despite having received it from his dear friend. But something shifted in him that day, leading him to immediately respond and confirm his attendance. It was through this very invitation, and under the blessed gaze of ancient trees in Hyde Park, that fate would weave her magic and generously intervene to deliver Lord Percival her kindest mercy. For a new chapter in Lord Percival's life was soon to commence. As the days passed since their chance encounter in Hyde Park, Lord Percival found himself haunted by thoughts of Miss Rose Mayfeather. Her gentle demeanour and kind words had lingered in his mind as a beacon of light amidst the darkness. She was a breath of fresh air, a lighthouse in his stormy world. With each passing moment, Percival found himself grappling with the realization that he knew precious little about the enchanting young woman. If she only knew how much she had helped him. He cursed his own foolishness for not seizing the opportunity to learn more about her, to secure some means of contact beyond their brief exchange. He had walked through the park feeling lost, his mind a blur of so many emotions, unfortunately aiding in his lack of foresight that day. Regret gnawed at him like a persistent ache, a reminder of the missed opportunity that now seemed to loom larger with each passing day. What if he never saw her again? What if their paths never crossed? And he was left to wonder for the rest of his days what might have been. With a melancholy mood, Percival often wandered the streets of London and travelled back to the same park bench where they first met. His thoughts were consumed by the memory of Rose's gentle smile, the warmth of her presence, and the wise words she shared. He longed to reach out to her, to thank her properly, and to somehow find a way to bridge the chasm that now stretched between them. But try as he might, Percival could find no trace of Rose, no clue to her whereabouts or her true identity beyond the simple fact of her name. And as the days turned to weeks, the weight of his regret threatened to crush him beneath its burden. Yet, even in his darkest moments, Percival clung to the memory of their brief encounter, drawing strength from the warmth of Rose's smile and the kindness in her eyes. And though he may never find her again, he vowed to always carry her memory with him as a spark of hope through his days. It wasn't long before Lord Percival took the journey to Lord Hargrove's country estate for his midsummer gathering, and when he finally arrived, he felt a sense of relief wash over him. The sprawling grounds, with their lush gardens and tranquil atmosphere, offered a welcome respite from the bustle and noise of the city, as well as from his plaguing thoughts. Upon his arrival, Percival was warmly greeted by Lord Hargrove himself, who welcomed him with open arms and introduced him to the other guests in attendance. As the afternoon wore on, Percival found himself drawn to the estate's expansive grounds, eager to explore the beauty of his surroundings and clear his mind. In the tranquil gardens of Lord Hargrove's country estate, amidst the fragrant blooms and winding pathways, Lord Percival Abbott found himself lost in the serenity of his surroundings. The air was alive with the sweet melody of birdsong and the sun casting dappled shadows across the verdant landscape. Percival marvelled at the beauty of the gardens that surrounded him. The gentle breeze wafted the sweet scent of blooming flowers all around him. He followed the gentle murmur of a nearby fountain, its soothing melody of flowing water filling his ears the closer he approached. Lost in thought, Percival rounded a bend in the path, and there, strolling along the perimeter of the large garden fountain, was what he thought must be an apparition. Now kind and esteemed viewer, this meeting was most serendipitous indeed, as if orchestrated by fate herself. It was her, the beautiful and sweet Miss Rose Mayfeather, with the sun illuminating the golden hues of her lovely hair. He could hardly believe his eyes. Lord Percival felt his heart leap within his chest at the sight of her, his worries suddenly melting away. "Miss Rose," he said, unable to hide the joy and astonishment in his voice, "it's truly a delight to see you here." She looked up from the flowers she was admiring. "Lord Percival?" she queried, her voice full of cheer. "How fortunate it is to see you again." As they walked along the edge of the fountain, Lord Percival couldn't help but steal several glances at Miss Rose, his heart swelling with a mixture of joy and relief at their unexpected reunion. They spoke of their time apart, exchanging tales of their respective experiences since their chance encounter. "Miss Rose," he began, his voice heartfelt with sincerity, "since our encounter in Hyde Park, not a day has passed in which you have not crossed my mind." Rose's cheeks flushed a delicate shade of pink at his admission, her gaze meeting his with a shy smile. "Lord Percival, I must confess, I too have found myself thinking of you often," she replied in a shy tone. As they continued to stroll within the gardens, Lord Percival couldn't shake the question burning within him. "Miss Rose," he began, his voice gentle but filled with curiosity at the possibility that there could be a romantic connection or courtship between her and their host. "May I ask how it is that you find yourself here at Lord Hargrove's estate? Do you happen to have a connection to him?" Rose's smile faltered for a moment, a flicker of understanding crossing her features at the undercurrent of his question. "Through my brother, Thomas," she replied sweetly. "He is a dear friend of Lord Hargrove. His lordship has been kind and generous towards us, inviting us as guests on several occasions. However, this is the first ball I am to attend here." "I see," he said. A sense of relief washed over him at the thought that, if she was so inclined, he would be free to begin a courtship with her himself. "It is a small world indeed," he concluded. "It so happens, esteemed viewer, that Miss Rose comes from humble beginnings, born into a family of modest means and without the societal trappings of wealth or status. Her father, a respected scholar and academic, instilled in Rose and her brother a love of learning and a strong sense of integrity and kindness. Through their shared love of knowledge and learning, her brother Thomas forged a bond with Lord Hargrove, who is a renowned patron of the arts and sciences. Their friendship is now one that transcends the boundaries of social class and status. And it was through this connection that ultimately brought Rose into Lord Percival's life, as she accompanied her brother on his visits to the heart of London, as well as Lord Hargrove's estate." Rose nodded in agreement. Her intense gaze met his with warmth and reassurance, sending a thrill of anticipation straight through him. "Indeed, it is a small world, Lord Percival," she replied, marvelling at the serendipity of it all. "I must say I'm grateful for the chance to see you again." Percival felt his heart swell with emotion at her words, as he basked in the warmth of their connection. "The feeling is mutual, Miss Rose," he said. "I too am grateful for the chance to see you once more, and I look forward to getting to know you better in the days to come." The following evening, the grand ballroom of Lord Hargrove's estate was a sight to behold. Its opulent decor and sparkling chandeliers illuminated a warm glow over the assembled guests. As Lord Percival and Miss Rose made their acquaintance public, the room shifted to follow them with speculative glances. It seems the fire and scandal of his broken betrothal had not, as of yet, been thoroughly quenched. Percival could feel the weight of the room around him as he escorted Rose onto the dance floor. The orchestra filled the air with beautiful music, and likewise with a touch of magic. With each graceful step, he found himself enthralled by Rose, his heart pounding with a mixture of nerves and excitement at the privilege of holding her so close. With a deep breath, he summoned his courage. "Miss Rose," he began, his voice smooth like a gentle caress as his gaze locked with hers, "I hope you'll forgive my forwardness, but I feel compelled to make my intentions known to you." Rose's eyes widened, her curiosity piqued by his words, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "From the moment we met in Hyde Park, you have captured my heart in a way I never thought possible," Percival continued. "Your kindness, your grace, your intelligence, everything about you has changed me in a way I can scarcely explain." Rose's cheeks flushed with a delicate blush at his heartfelt words, her gaze softening with warmth and affection. "Lord Percival," she murmured gently at his unexpected declaration, I don't know what to say." "My dear Rose," he said, his eyes pleading, "allow me the honour of courting you." As Lord Percival and Miss Rose joyously danced in the shimmering ballroom, their blissful moment was interrupted by the unexpected arrival of a familiar face. Miss Isabella Wickham, now the Duchess of Devonshire, swept into the ballroom on the arm of her husband, Lord Edward Arlington, the Duke of Devonshire. Percival's breath caught in his throat at the sight of his former betrothed, his heart pounding with a mixture of disbelief as their eyes locked briefly across the crowded ballroom. Rose immediately noticed the change in Percival's demeanour. She could feel the mounting tension in his body as they danced. "Lord Percival?" Rose asked, her eyes searching his. "Do you know her?" Percival's gaze flickered with pain and regret as he met Rose's concerned eyes. With a heavy sigh, he knew he could no longer keep the truth hidden from her. Percival forced a tight smile, his facade of composure crumbling in lieu of seeing Isabella. He longed to escape the suffocating atmosphere of the ballroom, to flee from the memories that threatened to overwhelm him. As the music swirled around them, Lord Percival felt a growing urgency to confess everything to Miss Rose. If he were to ever move forward with her, he would need to lay bare the truth of his past. "Rose," he said, his voice unexpectedly downcast, "there's something I need to tell you. May we step aside for a moment?" Rose nodded, her brow furrowed with concern as Percival led her off the dance floor to a secluded alcove nearby. There, surrounded by the soft glow of candlelight, he took a deep breath and began to speak. "To answer your question, Rose," he said, his gaze never leaving hers as he began to recount the painful truth of his past, "I do know her. The Duchess. Lady Isabella and I are distant cousins, and were once betrothed, however. Circumstances beyond my control led to the end of our relationship." Rose's eyes widened in surprise, her heart aching at the revelation. "Betrothed!" she echoed with confusion. Rose listened in stunned silence as Percival poured out his heart to her, his words filled with raw emotion and vulnerability. And as he spoke of their chance encounter in Hyde Park and the solace he had found in her presence, Rose's heart swelled with compassion and understanding. "Miss Rose," he confessed, his voice trembling slightly, "you have brought light into my life when all I knew was heartbreak and darkness." Rose reached out to gently touch Percival's arm, her heart breaking at the sadness in his eyes. "I'm so sorry, Percival," she murmured with compassion. "I can't imagine how difficult it all must have been for you." Percival reached out to gently cup Rose's cheek, his touch sending a jolt of electricity coursing through her veins. He took a moment to appreciate the woman standing before him. "Please believe me when I say the love I once had for Isabella is gone. I realize now we were never truly suited," he said, his eyes suddenly filled with clarity. "It is through your eyes that I feel I can truly see the world and my place within it." His heartfelt words hung in the air as Rose looked at him, tears glistening in her eyes. "Will you allow me the chance to prove myself to you, to show you the depth of my affection, my loyalty and devotion?" he asked her with a reverent tone, feeling a renewed sense of hope and determination to leave the pain of the past behind him once and for all. A whispered "yes" escaped her lips. The word "yes" held so much promise for them that starlit night, kind, esteemed viewer. It was a foreshadow of a much-anticipated betrothal and bright future for the Viscount of Weston and his soon-to-be Viscountess. And if you are wondering if the Duchess of Devonshire and the Viscount, Lord Percival Abbott, continue to travel in the same circles of society, well, it can hardly be avoided now, can it? Since they are and will always continue to be family, albeit distant, of course. All is fair in love and war, they say. Fare thee well, kind esteemed viewer. May we meet again for tea? Because the Tun never ceases to provide an infinite supply of saucy scandal, and I wouldn't live up to my namesake if I never shared it with you now, would I? Until we meet again,